In a dense jungle forgotten by time, a creature awakens. Small but fierce, fast but silent, the velociraptor hunts not for survival but for dominance. As rival predators invade its territory and a deadly storm brews on the horizon, the jungle becomes a battlefield. The velociraptor must protect its nest, outsmart larger threats, and adapt to an ever-changing world. But this is no ordinary raptor. It learns. It remembers. And it strikes with precision. In the heart of prehistory, instincts rule and only the sharpest survive. The velociraptor is not just a hunter, it is a legend in the making. The early morning mist hovered above the jungle floor, curling through thick ferns and tall cycads. Sunlight filtered weakly through the towering canopy. Somewhere deep within that ancient world, life stirred. Small lizards scurried over twisted roots. Insects buzzed, frogs croaked near the edge of a dark pool, and something else moved among the shadows, something with sharp eyes and sharper claws. Velociraptor. No larger than a turkey, but far more deadly, it crept low to the ground. Its eyes scanned for movement. Its curved toe claws tapped the earth softly with each silent step. This was its hunting ground, a place passed down through generations of raptors. Every rock and hollow tree carried the scent of its ancestors. The raptor paused beneath a fallen log. A protoceratops grazed nearby, unaware. Much larger and heavier, the protoceratops was no easy target. Still, the velociraptor watched with cold calculation. It was patient, but today was not the day for risk. Its nest was close. Its instincts called it back. The nest lay nestled at the base of a steep hill, hidden by thick vines and stone. Inside were 3 eggs, dappled with spots and warm from the morning heat. The velociraptor checked each one carefully, pressing its snout close, listening for movement inside. Life pulsed within them. Soon, the next generation would break free. But the jungle was changing. A deep rumble had begun to echo each morning, shaking branches and startling birds into flight. It came from the north, from beyond the river where giant sauropods wandered and rival hunters roamed. Something new had arrived, something that disturbed the balance. The velociraptor tilted its head, sensing tension in the air. Leaves rustled where no wind blew. The trees stood taller, quieter, as if holding their breath. It did not know fear the way a human would, but instinct whispered caution. Something was out there, something unfamiliar. Still, survival was not about fear. It was about awareness. The velociraptor sharpened its senses. It was fast, clever, and precise. It hunted in silence. It defended with fury. And above all, it adapted. In this world of giants, of storms and shifting earth, the velociraptor was not the biggest. It was not the strongest. But it was something more, something dangerous. The jungle may have forgotten the names of titans, but it would never forget the one who walked without sound, who struck without warning. The velociraptor was watching, waiting, and learning. And when the time came, it would act. Days passed. The rumble from the north grew louder. Trees shook with each tremor. Birds abandoned their nests. The ground felt unsteady, as if something massive was waking beneath the jungle floor. The velociraptor moved cautiously. It avoided open spaces and hunted closer to the nest. Every sense was on high alert. Even the smallest sounds carried meaning now, a snapping twig, a sudden hush among the insects, the flap of startled wings. Something was changing the rhythm of the forest. One morning, as it returned from a short hunt, the velociraptor caught a scent on the wind, unfamiliar, oily, sharp. It wasn't from any creature it knew. It didn't smell like meat, or leaves, or even death. It smelled like metal, like something cold and wrong. The raptor hissed low and moved toward the hill's edge to investigate. From a rocky perch, it looked down into the clearing beyond the trees. And what it saw didn't belong to this world. A tall machine stood in the open field. It had legs like a stilted insect and arms like a praying mantis. Lights blinked along its sides. A strange humming filled the air. Beneath it, a group of smaller machines hovered near the ground, scanning soil, snapping branches, collecting samples. One of them reached down and picked up a broken raptor egg, possibly from an abandoned nest. The velociraptor stared, still and silent. These were no predators. They didn't smell of flesh or move like hunters. But they were dangerous in another way. They didn't see the jungle as home. They were here for something else. Later that night, the velociraptor met another of its kind. A male, scarred from a fight, approached the nest quietly. They exchanged glances and low calls. The male had followed the machines from the north, watched them tear apart trees and carry strange rocks away. He had seen the path they left, clean, unnatural, empty of sound. Together, the two raptors began to patrol their territory. They set markers, scratched signs, and began to push other predators further away. This was their ground. Their jungle. And they would defend it. But the machines did not retreat. The following morning, the velociraptor awoke to a different sound. A sharp, shrill tone that echoed through the forest. The nest shook slightly. The raptor rose and climbed to a higher point for a better view. The machines were moving closer. Large cutting arms sliced through branches. Metal wheels flattened paths. A new machine, larger than the others, sprayed mist that killed smaller plants instantly. Insects died in seconds. Lizards fled. The jungle cried out. The velociraptor turned to the male. They exchanged sharp calls and clicked their teeth. They would act. By evening, the two raptors had tracked the machine's path. They circled the field where the main camp had formed. Strange glowing tents pulsed with light. Figures moved inside, bipedal, slow, wrapped in shiny suits. Not dinosaurs. Not natural. The raptors watched from the treetops, calculating. That night, they struck. The male leapt first, taking out a small drone with a slash of his claw. The velociraptor followed, diving into the clearing and slicing through wires and tubes. Sparks flew. Lights blinked out. The humans inside the tents panicked. Shouts rang out. A loud alarm echoed across the jungle. The raptors retreated quickly, slipping back into the forest. Behind them, chaos spread. The machines lit the clearing with blinding light. Smoke curled up into the sky. But the message was clear, the jungle would not surrender. The next day, a new threat appeared. A large metal creature arrived, thick-armored, slow, but powerful. It rolled on heavy treads and carried something on its back. It moved straight toward the hill where the velociraptor's nest lay hidden. The raptor knew it had to act before it reached the eggs. It called to the male. Together, they moved fast, weaving between trees, climbing over rocks. They reached the machine as it passed the river's edge. The velociraptor leapt, landing on its back, slashing at its metal hide. Sparks flew. The male attacked from the side, trying to damage the joints. The machine fired a burst of hot steam. The velociraptor jumped free just in time. The male wasn't so lucky. The heat hit him directly, sending him tumbling across the ground. The velociraptor rushed to his side. He was alive, but burned and weak. The machine rumbled forward. With a hiss of rage, the velociraptor turned back toward it. The machine was bigger, stronger, and made of things it didn't understand. But this was its home. Its eggs. Its world. The jungle fell silent as the velociraptor faced the metal monster. The machine advanced slowly, unaware that the battle it had stepped into was no longer scientific, it was primal. The raptor's muscles tensed. Her claws dug into the earth. Her breath was steady. Behind her, the wounded male lay barely conscious. Further back, hidden in the shade of overgrown ferns, her eggs waited, still, fragile, depending on her. The machine hissed again, releasing another burst of steam. It turned toward the hill, adjusting its aim. But before it could act, the velociraptor lunged. She landed atop the machine's back and slashed at its upper panels, her sickle claw striking sparks. The beast buckled slightly under the sudden weight. With a shrill electronic cry, it tried to shake her off. Its tread spun fast. It rotated toward a tree and slammed sideways, trying to crush her against the trunk. But she was too quick. She jumped off before impact, twisted in the air, and landed on a rock nearby. She paused only long enough to see where it was weakest, beneath its vent, near the joint where the treads connected. She darted forward again, this time under the machine. The heat radiating from its metal plates seared her scales, but she was fast, precise. With one violent leap, she struck at the vent. Her claws pierced the thin cover. Steam hissed out wildly. The machine staggered. Its lights blinked. It let out a loud screech, not of pain but system failure. It tried to retreat but moved unevenly now, one tread jammed by damage. The velociraptor slashed again, this time striking wires beneath. Sparks flew. The machine stopped. Smoke curled from its vent. Its blinking lights faded. Its arms twitched but did not raise. It stood in place like a broken statue. The jungle held its breath. Then the machine collapsed. The impact shook the ground. Birds scattered. Small animals emerged cautiously from burrows. The jungle seemed to wake up again, as if it had been holding itself back. The velociraptor stepped away from the wreck. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Her body ached. Her legs trembled. But she stood tall. She limped to the wounded male and nudged him gently. He blinked, barely able to lift his head, but he saw the smoking wreckage and gave a low, approving grunt. The velociraptor let out a soft call, a sound of victory and sorrow combined. From beyond the clearing, more movement. The humans returned, cautiously entering the area. They stared at the ruined machine, then at the raptor. Their faces behind glass helmets showed fear and awe. The velociraptor snarled, a clear warning. They didn't approach. One of them raised a hand slowly, then turned away. Within minutes, they were retreating. The machines followed. The jungle floor began to quiet again. No more cutting, no more smoke, no more cold metal. The velociraptor stood in the rising sunlight. Her forest was damaged but still alive. Her eggs were safe. The intruders were gone. She looked to the treetops, where the wind moved softly through the leaves. She had won. Not because she was the biggest or strongest, but because she had the heart of a protector. The jungle had chosen its guardian. And she had answered. The jungle was still, but no longer tense. The threat had passed. The mechanical beast lay motionless, smoke curling into the canopy like a defeated ghost. The velociraptor circled it one last time to be sure. No movement. No sound. Only silence and the scent of scorched metal. She turned back toward the trees. The wounded male had managed to lift himself halfway onto his feet. He limped toward her, blood still trailing down his side. The velociraptor nudged him gently, offering comfort. They had survived. Together. The forest began to breathe again. Monkeys chattered from the high branches. Insects returned to the air. Birds sang cautiously, sensing the danger had gone. The balance of life had been disturbed, but it was already trying to heal. The velociraptor led the male toward their nest. It was a quiet walk through familiar paths now marred by crushed undergrowth and scorch marks. Fallen trees blocked parts of the trail. Broken branches crackled underfoot. But the forest was still theirs. As they reached the nest, the raptor paused. The eggs were intact. All three, warm and safe beneath a bed of leaves and moss. She lowered her head and gently brushed one with her snout, checking for cracks. None. Relief washed over her. The male settled beside the nest, exhausted. He wouldn't be hunting for days. His wounds were deep. But he was alive. That was enough. She sat beside him, her eyes never leaving the jungle edge. She was alert. Watching. Ready. Far off in the distance, the rumble of helicopters could be heard. The humans were leaving. Perhaps for good. Or perhaps only for now. Either way, the message had been delivered. The forest was not empty. It was not lifeless. It was protected. Night fell slowly, casting long shadows over the clearing. Fireflies danced in the air. The velociraptor curled herself near the nest, wrapping her tail protectively around the eggs. Her breathing slowed. Her body ached from the battle, but her spirit held firm. Above her, the stars appeared one by one. Somewhere beyond the trees, other dinosaurs stirred. Herds of hadrosaurs marched toward water. A lone pterosaur glided between the trees. The world moved forward. And the jungle remained sacred ground. By dawn, the first egg began to shift. A tiny crack formed at the top. The velociraptor perked up instantly, watching with calm focus. She waited, silent and still, as the crack grew wider. A small snout emerged. The baby raptor blinked at the world for the first time. It let out a soft squeak. The velociraptor lowered her head and nudged it gently. Her gaze was warm, her body still tense but calm. The jungle was dangerous, and life here was never easy. But it was life. Real life. Wild and free. Behind her, the ruined machine had already begun to rust. Vines crept toward it, ready to reclaim what had been taken. The jungle wastes nothing. It forgets nothing either. The velociraptor turned back to her hatchling. The second egg began to move. There was no more room for fear. Only hope. The war had ended. For now. Would you like me to continue? The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the jungle canopy. Dew sparkled on the leaves like diamonds. A warm breeze rustled the treetops. Life had begun again. The velociraptor stood tall at the edge of her nest. Behind her, the male rested, his wounds scabbing over. The jungle had provided healing herbs, shelter, and peace. Nature was resilient, and so were they. In the nest, 3 tiny hatchlings moved clumsily. Their eyes were still adjusting to the light. Their limbs trembled with each step. They squeaked and chirped as they explored their small world, nudging each other and pressing close to their mother's side. The velociraptor watched them with alert eyes. Not just a mother, but a protector. A survivor. She had faced destruction and fear, and now, she stood as the last line between her offspring and the dangers that might return. The wreckage of the metal beast lay far behind her, already buried beneath fallen leaves and curling vines. Nature wastes no time reclaiming what is hers. Even the scent of oil and fire was beginning to fade. The jungle was not untouched, but it was alive. The velociraptor guided her young away from the nest for the first time. It was a short walk to the water's edge, just beyond the ferns. The hatchlings stumbled over roots and tripped in soft earth, but they kept moving. Each step they took was a quiet declaration that life had not been defeated. The water sparkled beneath the morning sun. Insects skimmed the surface. A family of turtles watched from a sun-warmed log, unbothered. Everything felt new again. She let the hatchlings drink. Then she stood guard, scanning the trees. No strange sounds. No mechanical movements. No scent of humans. The jungle was whole. As the day warmed, birds flew overhead in wide arcs. Their calls echoed through the trees. Small herbivores moved in distant herds. Predators kept to the shadows, knowing instinctively that a velociraptor on watch was not to be challenged. The hatchlings returned to the nest on unsteady feet. The male rumbled softly in his throat, watching them with quiet pride. His mate settled beside him. Their eyes met for a brief moment. They had made it. That evening, thunder rolled in the distance. A storm approached from beyond the mountains. The jungle welcomed the change. Rain would cleanse the ground and feed the roots. Every drop would carry new beginnings. The velociraptor did not fear the storm. As the sky turned gray, she gathered her hatchlings close. The wind picked up, and the trees swayed with strength. Lightning flashed above. Thunder cracked through the canopy. The velociraptor stood tall. Unmoving. Unafraid. She had faced machines and fire and humans with their endless hunger. She had survived. Her young had been born into a world worth fighting for. And she would fight for them again, if needed. Beneath the roaring sky, the jungle pulsed with power. Not just the power of tooth and claw, but the power of balance. Of rhythm. Of an ancient order that no machine could ever tame. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. That was the law of the wild. But tonight, under the rain and stars, the velociraptor was at peace. Not because the world was safe, but because she had made it safer.